Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Humans Project. My name is Julia. I'm an empowerment coach. And as I'm sure some of you guys have seen, I've been posting vlogs where I interview people about their journey and what they have been through and how they have come out on the other side. And today I have Denise with me. She is a former elementary school teacher, and she's now a transformational coach. She felt disconnected from her truth for many years, and she made a commitment to her healing and was guided to rediscover herself from the inside out, which I love and I can relate to. And she now does transformational coaching, and she finds great joy in supporting others through their own healing processes. So hi, Denise, and welcome. I'm really glad to have you on here today.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to thank you for creating this incredible platform for all of us to share our truth and for being such a safe space for all of us. It's going to be very healing for many, many people.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that. I definitely hope that people get something out of this as well as yourself. And then if you can just share a little bit about your journey, you can feel free to pick up, wherever you want, whatever feels natural and comfortable.
Okay. So I'll take you back to when I was about 11 years old. At that time in my life, I had something going on. Like I had two different parts of my life that were, as I reflect back, looking back, I see played a great role in my path unfolding. So the first was at school, I experienced a form of bullying with a small group of people. And that was just like a small incident, but I can see how it affected me moving forward in terms of like how I learned the way to trust people and how I learned how to protect myself and put up a wall, like different aspects of that experience definitely affected me. I also had another experience in the home. So this was like the major part of my my history, my childhood that greatly affected me moving forward. And that was more, I like to paint this picture because I think a lot of people downplay their history, their childhood experiences by saying, oh, but nothing really significant happened to me, or, it wasn't that much of a big deal. And I like to say that any form of trauma or it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. It's irrelevant completely, because what could be happening to one person or the way it looks may not look like anything significant to somebody else, right? So it just matters how it internally affects us emotionally at the emotional level. So I like to paint my picture because it really, when you look, I grew up in a very upper class family, beautiful parents that are still together today. I was given everything I could have ever imagined. My needs were met physically, it looked from the outside in picture perfect, right? But internally, I was definitely lacking in the emotional needs, where I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel supported, I didn't feel heard. And I can relate when people say, but my past really wouldn't affect my present day experiences because they weren't that big of a deal. Because I always thought that because of the way my environment looked, I never really thought that my experiences mattered much, right? Until I started moving forward on my journey and I started seeing how I was changing. Like I literally changed every aspect of myself. I shut down completely. I formed all these crazy beliefs. They're not crazy. They were very true for me for a very long time, where I felt like I couldn't speak my truth. I didn't even know what my truth was, quite honestly. I lost complete connection to my internal compass, my intuition, my sense of like safety in the world. I just felt, quite frankly, I felt invisible. Like I felt like there were moments where I questioned, why am I even here? Because that's how much it affected me in terms of like when I would go to speak up or when I would go to express myself, I had a very like vocal opinion growing up. I was a very strong-willed child. I saw through a lot of bullshit. So if something was happening in the house, I wanted to say it. I just wanted to speak up and call it out, and I think, I know now in retrospect, of course, when we're on the healing journey, we can easily say our guardians, our parents are always doing the best they can with what they know and with the tools that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I can see that. And back then, I wanted to take charge. Like I wanted to I wanted to express what I saw was happening. And at a very young age, for parents, that's a very hard thing, right? That's a very hard thing to like kind of navigate through. So I was constantly, given the message that it was safer to just stay quiet. So that was basically the foundation of my earlier experiences. But it's funny though, and I take you back to when I was that time period when I was being bullied. I wasn't feeling safe in the school environment. I wasn't feeling quite safe at home, even though it looked safe. I didn't feel it, right? So I was kind of like trying to hide in both aspects of my life. But I would come home from school and I remember I would plop myself on the couch and I would turn on the Oprah Winfrey Show and I would watch her and I would just be so enthralled by how she, kind of like what you're doing, like she would just sit and allow people to be their true self and express themselves. And you would just see people transforming right before your eyes because she just gave them the space to do that. And I can remember like at 11 years old saying to myself, like, this is the only place I feel really safe because it was the only place where I could feel people being real, and at school, you felt like you had to put on a show. And at home, I felt like I couldn't be myself. So this was the place. And as I look back, I think that just says a lot about where, like, I think as children, when we don't have that filter, right? When we haven't taken on all the beliefs about ourselves, we can kind of pinpoint where we're being drawn to, like what lights us up, right? So it's just funny where life took me 30 years later. It's kind of like that's where I thrive today, is with people when they're being their most truthful self. So moving forward, life went on and I started to realize that I had shut down and completely disassociated with my truth when I started to engage in relationships in my 20s. I started to see patterns occur. And at first, of course, we point the finger outward, right? And we blame and we say, oh, well, it was them, on to the next. Oh, it was them, on to the next. Well, after seeing the pattern reoccur more than a few times, is when I really started to look within and say, holy shit, I have to take responsibility for this, because it's, you know, I'm the common denominator in all of this. And so that's kind of like where the turn took.
And first of all, thank you so much for sharing this whole story. Definitely, I'm a huge fan of Oprah. This whole project, so thank you for bringing that up, because I used to watch her too, and this whole project actually came to me in a dream, and Oprah was a part of it. For those that don't know the story, at some point I might share it live, but she was a monumental part of it and still is. So Team Oprah, and probably a lot of people can relate to like watching her show and feeling some sort of connection and like wanting to either be her or to be her, which is kind of like what you know, it sounded like you were struggling with. And I think just in general, a lot of people tend to struggle with that, especially in the teenage years. So the question is just, how do we get ourselves out of that? I mean, I definitely had, you know, can relate and had a lot of that same experience as well. But the question is like, how do we get ourselves out of that? So what was the turning point, would you say, for you? Was there like a particular relationship, or was it just after having a few of them? What was the turning point for you? Or maybe it was, you know, in your teaching career, or just what was like the turning point where you said like enough is enough, and like I have to go inward, and like I have to do this work on myself in order to really truly be happy? And I think if there is a takeaway, it would really be that happiness is so internal. You can't really rely on other people, relationships, friendships, for, you know, true, deep happiness. You really have to go inward, heal the traumas, like you've stated. So what was like some sort of turning point where you just said, I have to change, like the changes have to be made now?
Yeah. There was like one really significant moment where I was actually in my classroom teaching my kids, and I was going through, you know, yet again, another relationship where I saw it wasn't going in the direction I wanted it to go. And I knew that I knew that I had to take responsibility for myself and start seriously looking within. And on that specific day, I heard a voice like kind of come in and say that I was supposed to be helping people, like that this job, that this role as a teacher was just like a stepping stone to me being a teacher in a different way. Like I heard this whole message come through, and I was just so taken back because I had never felt so lost in my life. You know, I was like, I literally talked back and said, well, if that's the case, I'm drowning here. So like, I need help first, before it was like kind of foreseeing what was to come. And I literally asked for a sign in that moment. And that same day is when I got on my computer and found an email for some sort of coaching program. And I had never really heard of life coaching before. And I started to do some research, and I just, you know, hired one. It felt right for me. I had been in therapy earlier in my teen years, and it helped. It helped a little bit, but coaching really helped me, rather than sitting in my past and kind of just trying to sift through it. Coaching really helped me to take responsibility for the ways that I had defined the stories around what had happened, because it's not what happens to us, it's how we define it for ourselves and the meaning that we make. And so coaching really helped me see that no matter what happened, I was responsible for the meanings that I made about what happened and the interpretations that I created. And everything that we interpret defines how we feel, and how we feel interprets how we create. So it like put all the pieces together for me. And I loved it so much. And it just, like, it opened my eyes so much to how much power we really have, that it was just undeniable. Like, that was going to be my next step in terms of where I was going to take my work, you know? And so I went through this whole journey, and I don't sugarcoat it. There was nothing easy about it, and I'm still on it. You know, every experience is literally shows up for us as a mirror to show us where we still need to just dig a little bit deeper, you know? And so it's not like we get to a place where suddenly everything is right. It's just we get to a place where when we can take responsibility, we see how we have control over our external circumstances. So yeah, I just went down this road, and it was very eye-opening. And I hit a few rock bottoms, because when you really go in and take responsibility, you have to own everything. There's no place for you to point the finger outward ever again. Like, there's no power there. So I had to literally look at every aspect of where every relationship I had been in. I had to look at, what was that person trying to teach me, whether they were really good for me or not good for me, you know, because some of them were relationships where I got to hide and just, you know, play it safe. And if I would have gotten hurt, it wouldn't have mattered, because I was playing it safe. And then some of them might have been really good for me, but I needed, okay, how do I explain? It's very interesting, because I realized that I went in both directions with my relationships. Some of them I was really in a place where it didn't matter what happened, because I want to explain this, because I needed both ends of the spectrum to really heal the core wound, right? Like, I needed to see that in one aspect, I was trying to play it safe by not getting hurt. And in another aspect, I was trying to, how do I explain it? I was putting myself in a position where I could potentially get hurt. And I needed that experience to know that even if I did, I would still be okay. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I needed both extremes to really get to my center, to this place where I could understand that nothing outside of me really could define how my emotional state could be. Like, my emotional state could only be defined by myself, right? So I could try to manipulate, I guess this is what I want to say. I could try to manipulate the externals, right, to make myself feel safe. But in the end, it was just a game that I was not winning, you know, until I could fully own that my emotional state was totally and completely up to me. And when our emotional state is completely up to us, then we are not fearful anymore. And we desire what we can own, our true desires. You know, we can own them without, because I think most of us won't go there. And this was me. We won't go there and actually state what our true desires are, because we have all those guards up and those fears. Does that make sense?
100%. And I love, if I can just take it back to the mirror reference, I love that you mentioned that, because that is something that I preach. It took me also a while to realize that all the relationships and everything that I've been through were kind of like a reflection of where I was at on an energetic level. So when they say the higher your vibration, the higher the quality of people that are going to be coming into your life. And that I've only started to kind of see, you know, recently. And so I love the mirror reference, because it's really like once you take that responsibility back is when you really take back your power and realize that like we're not victims. We chose people based on our vibrational and energetic level at that time, and they needed to show us exactly like you've stated it very beautifully and eloquently, that there is some healing that we needed, or still might need. Like you just probably see it because you're a fellow coach like I am, that you'll be coaching a client and you'll be trying to get them to a certain place, but they sometimes will like get it and then continue the same behavior anyway because they're not ready. But once you really get to that place, and I think it's always a work in progress, right? We're never perfect. It's like an evolution. But I think like once you get to that place where you can at least own it and know that you take full responsibility, that's when the universe starts sending you, I think, just people in general that are going to be on a much higher vibration. And you're going to really start feeling that. And so I'm huge on that. So I love that you spoke to that as well. And can you just tell us a little bit about like what you're doing these days? What you're up to and how you're helping other people, to see the light is really what I call it, because there's really no other way to refer to it other than just coming out of your own darkness in your own shell and really just seeing your own light.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing I love more than to just help people see that every part of their journey is necessary. Like because when we can use our experiences instead of shame them, we can't help but be empowered. So I like to help people connect the dots. So what I'm doing now is essentially just coaching people one-on-one, and I tend to draw in people that are just like me, that have had the same, that's what we do, right? We attract very alike experiences. So it's so fulfilling for me because I can see when somebody's struggling, I can have so much compassion for that because I understand being in a pattern, wanting to break it, and just not being ready, maybe at the mental level, like you can't force it, and sometimes all it takes is having somebody just walk with you through it until you're ready to face it. Sometimes we have to repeat it a few times, many times, in order to finally just say enough is enough. Sometimes we have to repeat it so we can learn different aspects in different situations so that we can put all the pieces together. Like there's so many different variations. Nobody's journey is, alike. We all have our own experiences, but all of our experiences are not by accident. They come into our lives we can either draw from them or we could feel defeated. And I like to say that my biggest victory is that I've used every relationship as a way to wake up from really just like being asleep from my own power, my own desires. But the thing is, like, what I can also say is I think we always know, like, even when I was feeling so lost in my darkest moments, I had visions of like what the kind of relationship that if I were to be in one, the one I would want it to be, even if it felt like miles away and that it was unattainable, I could still feel and sense like the energy of it and what I would want it to look like and what I would want it to feel like. But I also intuitively knew that it couldn't unfold until I brought myself there. Oftentimes we want to get there to feel the feeling, but we have to create the feeling within us. And the only way to create the feeling is to heal those old, like those old traumas that we've carried, not just mentally in our mind, but in our physical body. You know, we're carrying all of these experiences around with us. And so because I've been through it, I just find so much joy in walking people through that tunnel to the other side of it. And I also love finding ways to like put the journey into words so that people can just read like little things and have maybe an eye open, like an aha moment, or just connect, you know, read something. And I like to express my journey through writing in hopes that people might say, oh, I can connect to that. I know where, you know, that makes sense, or apply it to their life in a way that can support them.
And I love that you do that. I absolutely love your quotes. You've been very inspirational on my journey, and I've been following you for a little while now, and I'm absolutely, like I said, very inspired. And you can just tell that everything is coming from an authentic place. And just one interesting thing is that I'm all about like manifesting like our dream life. That's kind of where my journey has sort of like taken me toward. And just to speak to like the fact that I love what you said about we need to be in that feeling of how we would feel when we have already attained like that perfect relationship with our soulmate, the dream house, you know, the millions, you know, perfect clients, the perfect business, whatever it is that's on our wish list. Once we start to actually internalize that and visualize it and really feel like that, if you want to go, you know, take a trip to Italy, just as an example, like to close your eyes and really visualize, you know, strolling through the streets of Rome, for example. I mean, you know, or even in the perfect relationship, how that would make you feel. So I love that you definitely spoke to that. And I know we had kind of discussed that a little bit, and I'm huge on that. And so that's definitely a great message that I would love to send out to our viewers, is that you can absolutely manifest your dream life. You have to be happy within, and you definitely need to start feeling those feelings and internalizing them. And again, you know, we're both coaches, and we definitely, like Denise was saying, have our own like tribe is what I call it. So if anybody out there needs help with any of these things, you can feel free to reach out to either one of us or maybe both of us. Denise and I are definitely going to be collaborating on some other big things, I hope. And thank you so much, Denise, for sharing. Is there anything else that you want to, maybe a message you want to send to our viewers, like with the holidays coming, or just anything you want to like end off with?
Well, I'll say this with just to piggyback off of what you were saying, in terms of like feeling, like the feeling of having something, you know, you're there when you actually don't need it. So it's like you really in this place where it's okay if you get it and it's okay if you don't. It's that energy of non-attachment, and just like, it's like if it comes your way, it's almost like it's an expectation, right? Just as much as anything you have in your life right now is comfortable to have, those things that feel way off into the future should feel exactly like that. Like it's just comfortable, you know, there's no highs, there's no lows. It's just like you're welcoming it in because it's just a natural thing. You know, that's how we know that we're we're kind of like good. We're solid with it, right? And I think it's important. I think that takes, okay, so here, if that doesn't feel realistic, if it feels like there's something that you're wanting to draw in and it doesn't feel that way, where it wouldn't be very comfortable, or you can't imagine it, that's the sign that there's more healing to do. That's just how you know. If there's something that you want and you can't imagine it coming in, there's just healing. That's just the way the universe is showing you there's inner healing to do. It's not a matter of like, oh, that'll never happen. It's a matter of, oh, what's within me that, you know, needs clearing and healing. And I think that's a good way to decipher if we need to work on the inner turmoil that's going on. Does that make sense?
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. I absolutely, and to me too. Sometimes, you know, I feel like we tend to get obsessed about outcomes, and we tend to get very obsessive about, like, I have to have the right person in my life, like right now. So I'm going to get on like every single dating app out there, you know, and really what you're doing, and I really try to like hone in on this with my clients, is that the second you let go of that desperation, which is exactly what you were speaking to, if I may just put a couple of just like psychological therapeutic terms to it,
Yeah.
just this like OCD like level of desperation. And I feel like the minute that you sort of give the rights over to the universe, like, you know, you do the manifesting and you do the inner work and you try to work on being happy without, like you said, without actually having these things, just being grateful. I think the biggest thing is just to have the gratitude, you know, and be grateful for the house that you're in now, even though you might want a bigger one, you know, with a pool and stuff like that. And that may very well be something that you can manifest. But I think like letting go of that obsessive, compulsive desperation, and don't get me wrong, you do need to take some informed actions, and you do need to, you know, if you want to make $1 million at your current, you know, business, I mean, there's definitely things that you're going to need to do in order to get there. So you definitely have to take the steps. But I think, and I'm definitely speaking to myself right now as well, I think letting go of that compulsion and that need to constantly, I mean, the entire day from the minute you wake up, you know, be focused on, when is my dream man coming? When is this $1 million going to hit my account? I think once you feel comfortable that, like, you know, you're going to get it, you're manifesting, you're visualizing, you're feeling it, you're grateful for what you have, but now you kind of just relinquish the control. And the only way that I can compare that to is just in the dating world, where you just kind of like say you're taking a break from the apps, you know, you're going to take a little break to just do some work on yourself and like not go on, you know, 3 dates every single weekend. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just once you kind of let go of that compulsion and that sort of desperation, in a sense, that's when the universe is going to start aligning things for you, and things are going to slowly start working out and happening. And it doesn't happen overnight. So that's the other thing, is like we have such an anxiety and, like you said, an attachment to outcomes, and like, when is this happening? And I've been constantly working on this, and it's been a year, and it's I think once we can relinquish control to the higher powers that be, you know, whether it's God or the universe, there could be, you know, different things that you believe in. I think that's when the universe starts slowly shifting and changing things to make things work out for you, if that makes any sense. So I love everything that you have just spoken about, because that's something that I preach to all my coaching clients, and it's something I have to tell myself daily as well, because you know, there's always these great ambitions and these huge goals that we want, and like we want them yesterday, but it's a work in progress. It's a process, and we have to enjoy every step of the way.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you so much, Denise, for your time, for agreeing to do this project with me. Maybe one day, Team Oprah, and we will get to meet her together. I'm going to put that on my vision board. It's going on. And thank you again for your time. I'm wishing you and all of our viewers a very healthy and very happy, fun, you know, as fun as it can be with given our circumstances, holiday season. And if anybody would like to participate in the Empowered Humans Project, please feel free to reach out to me. And on that note, we're going to call it a night. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate your time, and just keep being so inspirational and motivational, because we need you.
We need you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful evening.